For 24 years, Adrienne had been married to one man, Ezra Davidson.
Her world was Ezra and her children.
But Ezra's world included someone else.
He was talking about having his cake and eating it too.
She found a chain of emails between her husband and the woman.
My mom kind of said, let me deal with it.
And on New Year's 2009, she did.
The cause of death is a gunshot to the back of the head.
Was it the deadly revenge of a scorned wife?
He made his bed and he got to lay in it.
Or the impulsive act of a desperate woman?
She just couldn't take it anymore at that moment and just snapped.
Pomona, California, January 1st, 2009. It was around 2 a.m. on New Year's Day, and 21-year-old Jessica Davidson had just left a friend's party when she received a curious phone call from her mother, Adrienne.
We were getting ready to go back and go to bed, and I get this phone call that I need to come home.
As requested, Jessica and her boyfriend drove back to her parents' house in a middle-class suburb of Los Angeles. There, she found 46-year-old Adrienne Davidson waiting outside.
I see her right in front of the door, and I ask her, what's going on? Why did you call me in the middle of the night?
Adrienne's answer was evasive.
She didn't explain what was happening. She just told her daughter that she needed a ride.
Her response is, can your boyfriend take me to...
Didn't need to explain. Jessica knew that her mother and father's marriage was in trouble. Just 2 weeks earlier, Ezra Davidson had admitted that he was having an affair.
Ezra told Adrienne that she could leave him or she could live with the fact that he has this mistress.
At this point, I'm thinking, okay, they got into a fight.
That's what Jessica Davidson thought. And she wasn't entirely wrong. There had been a fight, but her father hadn't left. He was still upstairs in bed, and he was dead.
The cause of death is a gunshot to the back of the head.
Born in 1962, Adrienne Parrott had grown up in suburban New Jersey.
Her father was a very successful dentist, graduated from Morehouse College, and always lived very, very upper middle class.
But while her childhood was comfortable, it wasn't happy.
She had a mother who wasn't very emotional or outwardly loving, and a father who only knew how to discipline by scaring his children with his fist.
Adrienne, the oldest, suffered the most.
Her father beat her with a tree branch. He had 3 daughters, but for some reason, Adrienne was the one who he really, really directed a lot of physical abuse towards.
Physical abuse wasn't all Adrienne suffered either.
Her father would ridicule her, would talk down to her, took away her confidence.
After high school, Adrienne's father shipped her off to Spelman College, a historically African-American women's school, which was associated with his alma mater, Morehouse. But he didn't really send her there to get an education.
According to Adrienne, her goal there was to find a husband.
It didn't take Adrienne long to find a potential candidate. In 1981, the freshman started dating a young man from Detroit named Ezra Davidson. It was, in many ways, almost an arranged match.
Adrienne's dad and Ezra's dad were friends at Morehouse College.
But while she may have started seeing Ezra to please her father, Adrienne soon fell in love.
He's goofy and silly and adventurous and just wanting to live life to the fullest.
Here's a man who she thought was totally different from her dad. Here's a man who she admired his intellect, she admired his demeanor. I mean, he was what she thought in her mind that a man should be. And she just fell head over heels.
And when employee,
He had the entrepreneurial spirit.
He carried a check with him for $1 million, and his goal was to be able to cash that check.
in 1998, Ezra and several partners formed their own company.
Working with digital content so that it could be streamed and sold on the internet.
It was a cutting-edge concept for its time.
It was pretty rocky in the beginning.
And Ezra used all his considerable charm to make the new company a success.
Ezra was like a used car salesman. He had that vibe. You know, it was 100%. It was great. Everything was awesome. And people bought into that.
Adrienne, who gave birth to a son in 2000, rarely came along when Ezra was out entertaining clients.
She didn't really want to be around people. Being at home with her kids and her husband, that's all she really needed.
But around the office, there may have been signs that Ezra needed more.
He was just such a playful guy that it was just easy to goof around and have fun, whether it's some sexual innuendo or just something that made everybody kind of laugh.
In the process, Ezra made himself relatively rich. When he and his partner sold the company in 2007, Ezra and Adrienne celebrated by buying a new house in suburban Pomona.
Ezra told his wife to look for a house in the price range of $700,000 to $800,000.
And while he couldn't quite cash that $1 million check he kept in his pocket, he was able to put approximately half that amount down on the new house.
He took out a mortgage for only $300,000.
To pay the mortgage, Ezra took a job at another media company, while Adrienne stayed busy taking care of the new house and their family.
She was pretty much home all the time. I'd see her sometimes gardening in her backyard, and they had a beautiful pool in the hill in the backyard.
For the most part, Adrienne appeared satisfied with her quiet upper-middle-class life in a peaceful suburban neighborhood.
She didn't have a lot of friends. She didn't have a social life. Her world was Ezra and her children.
And as 2008 drew to a close, Ezra was pretty satisfied with his life too, but for a very different reason. After Ezra and his partners sold their company, buying a house wasn't all he did to celebrate.
After we sold the company, there was a lot of celebrating and going out.
Ezra was the one that was just the big spender. He treated everybody out to dinner, the most expensive place possible. Everything about him was just big. Go big or go home.
If he had it, he was going to spend it.
He didn't spend it all on his former employees either.
It attracted certain people. It attracted women, younger women.
Ezra, now in his late 40s, found the attention flattering.
It was fun, it was exciting, it fed his ego, it was something new for him.
Soon, however, Ezra's friends realized that he was after more than flattery.
We were having a house party, and a group of 3 women arrived. They were younger women in college. They were dressed for a club or a party, and he introduced me to one girl in particular that I understood was the girl that he was interested in and started to see.
At the time, Ezra's friends didn't tell Adrienne about her husband's affair.
I wasn't going to be very judgmental about that, and I also believe that he also felt that he can try to continue the relationship and continue his family life.
After 24 years of marriage, Adrienne eventually began to suspect Ezra was up to something, however. On December 14, 2008, she asked her 21-year-old daughter for some help with her father's computer.
She's trying to get information off the computer. She doesn't tell me what she's looking for.
And when Jessica helped her mother access Ezra's email account, Adrienne soon found what she was looking for.
She found a chain of emails between her husband and the woman.
The emails confirmed what Adrienne suspected, but Jessica was blindsided by the news of her father's affair.
It makes me pretty sick to my stomach, more so because she's my age.
Based on the emails, Ezra's affair was more than just a casual fling. It was becoming a long-term relationship.
In the email, he's stating that He wants to fly her out to Vegas so that he can see her, and if things go well, that he'd be willing to pay for her tuition and her rent.
Other emails revealed that Ezra had also bought the young woman a car.
She just continued to ask for more and more, and Ezra's nature was to be very giving.
According to Ezra's daughter, the money he was taking from his family and showering on his mistress made Adrienne especially angry.
She couldn't believe that this was happening. He is buying her a car and paying for her tuition when I'm driving around in a piece of junk.
Jessica was angry too, and she urged her mother to do something about the affair.
Her daughter encouraged her to leave her husband and find a lawyer so that she could file for a divorce.
What's supposed to happen is you either figure it out or you get a divorce and you move on with your life.
According to Jessica, it appeared that Adrienne preferred the first option, working it out.
My mom kind of said, don't approach your father, let me deal with it.
Although, in hindsight, Adrienne didn't say how she intended to deal with her husband's affair.
I thought that she meant that she would talk to him.
Coming up, Adrienne requests a ride to the police station.
I'm freaking out because it's a very unusual request.
And then she makes a shocking confession.
She came into the station and basically told the deputy, I shot my husband.
Pomona, California, January 1st, 2009. It was a little after 2 o'clock in the morning on New Year's Day when 46-year-old Adrienne Davidson called her 21-year-old daughter Jessica and asked for a ride to the nearest police station.
Her daughter was with her boyfriend, and she asked her daughter to come home. She didn't explain why.
However, Jessica Davidson knew about the trouble in her parents' marriage. Trouble stemming from the fact that her father was having an affair.
What I'm imagining happened was that they got into a really big fight and she said that she wasn't gonna take it anymore, and he got really upset, and she just felt fearful for herself and her kids.
That's more or less the way Adrienne acted once Jessica and her boyfriend arrived at the house.
She gets my brother up and tells me that we need to go to my grandparents' house.
So that morning, while Jessica's boyfriend drove Adrienne to an LA County Sheriff's substation, Jessica drove her 8-year-old brother to her grandparents.
I'm freaking out at about this time because it's a very unusual request.
Unfortunately for Jessica, her night was about to get much worse.
My boyfriend calls and says, you need to come get me at the police station because they're gonna hold my car overnight. So I drive back to the police station, and now the police want to hold all three of us there until they're done questioning my mom.
Why the sheriff's deputies wanted to hold them, they wouldn't say.
That just doesn't go down very well. I just get pretty hysterical and really don't understand why I'm here and what's happening.
What Jessica didn't know was that her mother had just made a startling confession.
She came into the station and basically told the deputy, this is what I did. I shot my husband.
Within minutes, squad cars from the Pomona Police Department had been dispatched to Adrienne's house.
We saw the police cars and everything in the house lit up, like a Christmas tree. All the lights were on.
In the master bedroom, the police found confirmation that Adrienne was telling the truth.
They find Ezra dead in his bed with a gunshot wound in the back of his head.
And by the time Jessica and her little brother arrived at the station, her mother was already in the interrogation room, giving a formal statement. Adrienne told the investigators how on December 14th, she had discovered a series of emails her husband had sent a young woman, apparently a college student.
It seemed like they were in some kind of a relationship. It said in the emails that he would be paying for her rent, paying for her tuition, and he also purchased her a car.
Adrienne told the detectives that when she confronted her husband about the affair, he hadn't denied it.
He had told Adrienne that he was going to either divorce her or she could accept that he was going to go out and have fun.
According to Adrienne, the idea of a divorce terrified her.
She didn't consider divorce for 2 reasons. She didn't believe in it biblically, and she didn't have anything to fall back on.
I think that Adrienne felt trapped. I think she felt that she would be completely lost and alone without Ezra.
But with her husband's affair out in the open, Adrienne said she had ended up alone anyway.
He began spending less and less time at their home and spending more time at a condo in Los Angeles owned by his father.
He was talking about having his cake and eating it too, and he was very happy and kind of bragging a little bit.
Adrienne said that her husband's flaunting of the affair quickly became more than she could take. And she told the investigators that she had decided to do something about it. The same thing she'd done the first time she feared she was losing Ezra.
Adrienne decided after she found out about the affair that she was going to kill herself.
But since the sleeping pills hadn't worked back in college, Adrienne said this time she settled on a more surefire method.
She decided that the best way to do it would be to shoot herself, so she went to go and buy a gun.
Adrienne said that had been the plan, but when she got to the gun shop, she had apparently hit a snag.
In California, you have to wait 10 days before you can actually get the gun after you ask for it.
Adrienne told the investigators that she had gone ahead and ordered the gun, but she also said that by the time she actually got it, she was no longer suicidal.
When you have somebody who's suicidal, they're not suicidal 24/7 all the time. It's peaks and valleys.
Adrienne said she had brought the gun home on December 29th and put it in her bedroom closet.
She no longer wanted to kill herself, but she decided to keep the gun anyway because she had paid for it.
According to Adrienne, the gun was still in her closet 2 days later when the family gathered for dinner on New Year's Eve.
Ezra bought champagne and dinner, and Jessica was there.
She said that things were going pretty well, that they hung out, they were friendly with each other.
Adrienne told the investigators that things were still going well later that night, after Jessica left for a party with her boyfriend and her little brother went to bed.
They even poured champagne and were planning to have a toast when the new year changed.
They were counting the minutes to the New Year's.
But despite the champagne, and despite the fact that she and Ezra had been getting on so well that night, Adrienne said midnight came and went without a kiss from her husband.
She felt, disappointed, and she said she's going to sleep. And he said, I'll join you soon.
Adrienne told the investigators she had gone upstairs, gotten in bed, and waited. But several minutes passed with no sign of Ezra.
She was wondering what was taking so long.
Adrienne told the investigators she had gone downstairs and found Ezra on his phone texting someone.
She assumed that he was texting the mistress.
They celebrated New Year's Eve together, but he turned around and sent this woman a text message.
According to Adrienne, she had gone back upstairs to bed.
Eventually, Ezra does join her, and there's a conversation, and then she wants to re-engage him about their marriage, saying that it saddens her that you're, even on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, that you're not giving me the full attention.
She asked him if he would not spend holidays with the woman, not to speak to the woman on holidays.
Adrienne said that her husband had flatly and rudely refused.
That's when he said, deal with it on your own.
Then, according to Adrienne, her husband had rolled over and gone to sleep.
When she heard that no, he turned his back to her. That sent her in a tailspin.
And as she lay there in bed with Ezra sleeping beside her, Adrienne said her thoughts had turned to the gun tucked away in her closet.
She had lost all hope. She decided that she was going to shoot herself.
Adrienne told the investigators that she had gone into the closet and retrieved the gun. But even before she put the gun to her head, Adrienne said she had started having second thoughts.
She looks around and says, I can't kill myself here because it'd be too messy.
Adrienne told the investigators she had then gone into the master bath, only to decide against killing herself there, too.
And she says, "I don't want to be found in the bathroom."
Finally, Adrienne said that she decided to kill herself in bed, so Ezra would realize just what he had driven her to. Although whether that would actually bother him or not, Adrienne said she wasn't so sure. Because according to Adrienne, Ezra was already sound asleep when she approached the bed.
She said that he looked like he was at peace. She was upset by that because she had been having a lot of problems sleeping.
Their marriage was in shambles, and she had been contemplating suicide. But Ezra didn't appear to have a care in the world. According to what Adrienne told the investigators, it was all suddenly too much.
She explained it as almost an impulse, and without even really thinking about it too much, shot him in the back of the head.
Coming up, Adrienne speaks to her daughter.
I'm not leaving the station until I talk to her.
And Jessica gives the investigators a crucial clue.
You told me you were going to take care of him.
On New Year's Day 2009, an hour after shooting her husband Ezra, 46-year-old Adrienne Davidson had walked into an LA County Sheriff's Department substation and confessed to the crime.
As soon as Adrienne arrives at the police station, she tells the person at the front desk that she's shot her husband and wants to turn herself in.
In a formal statement to the authorities, Adrienne said she had been distraught over the fact that Ezra had been having an affair.
After Adrienne found all of this information about her husband having an affair, he told her that he was not going to leave this woman that he was seeing.
Shattered by the news, Adrienne told the investigators that she had initially planned to kill herself, but at the last minute, she had ended up killing Ezra instead.
She decided she would kill herself in her bed, and then by an act of compulsion just turned over and shot him.
At the end of her statement, Adrienne was taken into custody, although the authorities had yet to decide just how to charge her.
All homicides start at second degree. It's an unlawful killing of a human being with malice aforethought. And then the question then becomes, based upon the evidence that's collected, do we move up to first degree, or does it move down to involuntary manslaughter?
Hoping for a little clarity, the investigators turned to her daughter, Jessica. While Adrienne was in the interrogation room, the 21-year-old had been waiting outside, unaware of what her mother was confessing.
I don't appreciate having to stay at the police station not knowing what's going on, so now I'm freaking out.
However, by the time her mother had been taken into custody, Jessica was in the interrogation room and had been told her father was dead.
That really kind of put a whole new perspective on things.
Questioned by the investigators, Jessica told them what she knew about her father's affair and the trouble it had caused in her parents' marriage.
I give them a lot of backstory of also, how things escalated.
She also made it clear that Adrienne wasn't the only one who was angry about the affair.
Jessica was enrolled in college, and she said that her father was not able to help her with that cost at all, even at the same time that Ezra had spent all this money on a car for his mistress.
Then, after giving her statement to the investigators, Jessica asked to see her mother.
I basically say that I'm not leaving the station until I talk to her.
Eventually, hours after the shooting, the investigators allowed Jessica to speak to her mother via closed-circuit television.
It's in a very tiny space, and she looks like herself, but she's very distraught. Just can't really keep it together.
The same was true of Jessica.
She's stunned. She's in shock. And she wanted to know what set you off. What set you off?
I just don't get it. You told me yesterday that finally everything was fine. They celebrated New Year's Eve together, and that she had asked for him to reserve the day for them.
And she looked at him, and he was sending messages on his phone. And she feared that maybe he was talking to his mistress.
Couldn't even get me New Year's Eve without involving her. I couldn't believe it. It just broke my heart.
Jessica did her best to comfort her mother.
I get it, Mom. I totally understand. I love you. I'm not mad at you. I get it. I'm fine. I'm fine. I just needed to talk to you. Don't be sorry, Mom. Don't be sorry. It's okay.
I just couldn't take it anymore.
But while she was sympathizing with Adrienne, Jessica also said something else, something that caught the investigators' attention.
Did you plan this? I mean, is this what you meant when you told me you were going to take care of things on the first?
I just said that I was going to make sure that I was going to take care of you and Matthew.
Was shooting Ezra a spur-of-the-moment decision as Adrienne had described? Suddenly, the investigators weren't so sure.
She told her that something was going to happen on the first. And that certainly builds our case when it says she had this planned well in advance.
Adrienne also told Jessica that after shooting Ezra, she had meant to kill herself, too.
I understand.
But I got scared.
She didn't take her own life because after she heard the gunshot, she got scared.
But according to Adrienne, she regretted not following through with her suicide plan.
I am supposed to be punished.
After Adrienne's conversation with Jessica, the authorities were inclined to agree. And a few days later, when the investigators tracked down the gun shop owner who sold Adrienne a pistol on December 15th, their suspicion that Ezra's shooting was premeditated only increased.
He showed her about 6 guns. She ended up picking the semi-automatic. It was a Smith & Wesson 9mm.
According to the shop owner, Adrienne had also bought a box of hollow point bullets.
There's the full metal jackets, and there's the hollow point ones. And he describes the difference between the two of them to her. He says that if you want a lethal bullet, the hollow point is the way to go.
On January 29, 2009, Adrienne was formally charged with first-degree murder.
She picked up the gun on December 29th, and then, of course, proceeded to kill the person on January 1st. Certainly seems like a person who knew what she was doing.
On February 25, 2010, in a courtroom in Pomona, California, Adrienne went on trial for the murder of her husband.
The main question in this particular case is, what is it? Was it a first-degree murder? Was it a second-degree murder? Or was it a voluntary manslaughter?
There were 2 things complicating that decision. The first was that 2 weeks before the shooting, Ezra had admitted he was having an affair with a much younger woman.
She said he didn't apologize to her about it. He basically told her that he was going to keep seeing this woman and that there wasn't anything that she could do to keep him from her.
The second was the makeup of the jury, 11 women and only 1 man.
That could be an issue because I can see, the women coming and saying, you know what, I feel sorry for her.
In his opening statement, the prosecutor tried to preempt any sympathy the jury might feel by portraying Adrienne as a cold-blooded killer.
The prosecution argued that Adrienne planned out this killing, that she bought the gun, waited until she had the perfect opportunity to shoot him, and then she shot him.
Coming up, the defense puts Ezra on trial.
She's a battered woman who was pushed over the edge.
And Adrienne takes the stand.
She even said that she wished that she was dead.
On February 25, 2010, Adrienne Davidson sat in a California courtroom on trial for murder. The prosecution's opening statement painted her as a scorned wife who killed her husband in cold blood. But in the defense's open, Adrienne's lawyer presented a different perspective.
Throughout her entire life, Ezra remained her everything. She always questioned, how could she live without Ezra?
According to the defense, Ezra's affair hadn't made Adrienne angry. It had made her depressed and suicidal.
Her intention was to kill herself, and she looked and she saw this man who had taken everything away, and it was just compulsive. She just shot.
The prosecution, when it started presenting its case, countered with testimony they said established that Ezra's shooting was anything but an impulsive act. And it came from Adrienne and Ezra's own daughter, Jessica.
She was very critical in establishing the motive. Jurors want to know what set this person off. I mean, why did this person kill?
On the stand, Jessica told the jury about her father's affair.
She went into detail about how her father was spending a lot of money on his mistress, paying for her rent, paying for her tuition, providing her a car.
Then, once Jessica had provided the proper context, the prosecutors played jurors the tape of the jailhouse conversation Adrienne had with her daughter just hours after the shooting.
On the tape, Adrienne goes into some detail about her reasons for shooting her husband. And for the most part, they coincide with the prosecution's view of the case.
I wasn't going to let him give everything to that girl.
According to the prosecutors, Adrienne had taken steps to prevent that from happening, starting with the gun.
The prosecution in her trial said that she bought the gun intending to kill her husband, not to commit suicide.
The prosecution claimed she had admitted as much in her jailhouse conversation with Jessica.
When I got it, I was just so angry.
According to the prosecution, Jessica hadn't known what her mother planned to do on New Year's. But based on the jail tape, they claimed that Adrienne had dropped hints.
Jessica asked her mom, "Is this what you meant when you said you'll take care of it on the 1st?
I told you to get a lawyer. Why wouldn't you listen to me?
On cross, Adrienne's daughter did her best to defend her mother.
It's still my mom, and I want to defend her in any way that I can because that's all I have to fight for.
Questioned by the defense, Jessica added a surprising new twist to her mother's story.
She's a battered woman who was destroyed as an individual and was pushed over the edge because of it.
According to Jessica, the abuse Adrienne had suffered in childhood continued after she married Ezra.
Throughout the marriage, he was physically abusive, he was mentally abusive.
The allegations surprised Ezra's friends and coworkers.
The cheating I could have seen coming. I just didn't see the physical abuse coming. I didn't expect that from him.
On the stand, Jessica insisted that the accusations were true, even detailing one instance of physical abuse she had witnessed.
She was 11 or 12 years old when she said she saw her mother and father argue.
Jessica testified that the argument had come to a violent end.
Dad drags her down 2 flights of stairs, closes the basement door, and all you hear is screaming for the next couple of hours.
According to the defense, that was why Jessica had shown little sympathy for her dead father on the tape made after the shooting.
You could see Jessica comforting her mother and describing her father, who just died. He was an ass. He got what he deserved.
He was an ass, he made his bed, and he got to lay in it.
Can you just imagine the level of torture he must administer for a child to make that statement about her own father?
According to the defense, it was the sort of torture Adrienne knew well. They opened their case by calling Adrienne's sisters to the stand, who testified about the abuse she had suffered from her father and Adrienne's suicide attempt in college after Ezra had tried to break up with her.
The defense wanted to establish a pattern of Adrienne wanting to kill herself.
But it was all set up for the defense's star witness. On March 3rd, Adrienne took the stand in her own defense.
She looked very vulnerable.
She presented herself as a person that maybe was submissive, or she wanted to give that impression, and maybe meek and docile.
And if her mild-mannered appearance wasn't enough to sway the jury's sympathy, Adrienne tearfully described the long years of abuse she had suffered at Ezra's hands.
She talked about a number of instances in the past where she said Ezra beat her up.
Yet despite the alleged abuse, Adrienne insisted that she still loved Ezra.
She even said that she wished that she was dead so that she could be with him in the afterlife.
In fact, Adrienne claimed that she had planned to kill herself the night that Ezra died.
And it's our contention that when Adrienne buys the gun, she is going to kill herself.
But first, according to Adrienne, she had made a last desperate plea, asking Ezra to end the affair.
When her husband tells her no, that crushes everything, the entire foundation of her being. I mean, it takes away her family, it takes away her security, it takes away everything.
Rejected by Ezra, Adrienne said she had decided there was only one option left.
That compelled her to the closet to get the gun, to try to kill herself. And then she thought about it in the bathroom, thought about it in the closet, and then decided she would kill herself in her bed.
But when she came out and saw her husband sleeping peacefully, Adrienne said her plan of suicide took a sudden, drastic turn.
She just couldn't take it anymore at that moment and just snapped.
If you ask her now why she does, she'll say, I don't know. I just turned and shot.
She's trying to gain sympathy from the jury.
But did Ezra's cheating and his alleged abuse excuse what Adrienne had done? Not according to the prosecution's closing argument. In fact, they questioned whether the abuse had even occurred.
There was nothing about going to the hospital, nothing about calling the police, telling her parents, telling her sisters.
Most telling of all, according to the prosecutors, Ezra's alleged abuse never came up during the candid conversation between Adrienne and her daughter, recorded just hours after the shooting.
During that whole conversation, they only talked about one thing only. They talked about the affair. They talked about how Ezra was going to give this person everything. There was never any conversation about any domestic violence. Not once.
Coming up, the jury has no trouble reaching a decision.
The jury deliberated for only 3 hours.
But will jurors find in Adrienne's favor?
You're dealing with a woman who has a history of being a victim.
Los Angeles, California, March 9, 2010. It was just after 1 o'clock in the afternoon when the jury filed back into an LA County courtroom, ready to return its verdict in the murder trial of 47-year-old Adrienne Davidson.
The jury deliberated for only 3 hours before they returned their verdict.
Adrienne had confessed to shooting her husband Ezra shortly after midnight on New Year's Day, 2009. Charged with first-degree murder, she faced the possibility of life in prison if convicted.
First-degree murder carries 25 years to life.
At trial, Adrienne and her attorney had sought a lesser charge, arguing that Ezra Davidson's death was the desperate act of a woman who'd suffered years of physical and emotional abuse.
You're dealing with a woman who has a history of being a victim of abuse, who attempted to kill herself, commit suicide, on a prior occasion when she thought she was going to lose this very man.
But would their argument resonate with the jury?
The jury had the option of convicting Adrienne of first-degree murder, second-degree murder, and also of voluntary manslaughter.
It all came down to the moment when the verdict was read.
The jury found Adrienne guilty of first-degree murder, willful, deliberate, with premeditation.
They just did not believe that Adrienne bought the gun to kill herself.
Despite the verdict, Jessica remained convinced that her mother hadn't intended to kill her father that night.
In my mind, I don't think that this was something that she thought or planned of doing.
At the sentencing hearing on March 23rd, she once again testified on her mother's behalf.
She kind of painted her mother as almost a victim.
And pleading with the judge and basically telling him that he can't take her away forever.
However, California law gave the judge little choice in the matter. In fact, it effectively doubled her minimum sentence.
The gun allegation, because it led to Ezra's death, is an additional 25 years to life.
Now serving 50 years to life, Adrienne has discouraged her daughter from visiting her in prison.
She doesn't see a reason to have an ongoing relationship. She preferred that I live my life, that she's no longer on this earth.
According to her supporters, it's one final tragedy in the long string stretching back to Adrienne's troubled childhood.
This is a woman, who basically never experienced happiness. She's always in prison.
But for others, Adrienne's efforts to cast herself as the victim can't counteract the simple fact that she killed a man.
There is a victim here, and that is Ezra.
For 24 years, a quarter of a century's worth of shared dawns and dusks, of whispered dreams and mundane realities, Adrienne had been inextricably bound, heart and soul, in a marital covenant with one man and one man alone, Ezra Davidson. Their lives had woven together with a seemingly unbreakable thread, creating a tapestry where her entire universe revolved around the gravitational pull of him and the joyous, vibrant orbits of their children. Adrienne's perception of her own existence, her very identity, had been meticulously, almost painstakingly, carved from the bedrock of this singular relationship. He was the anchor, the compass, the very definition of her familial sphere, around whom her entire understanding of self and purpose coalesced. But as fate, in its cruel, unpredictable artistry, so often dictates, the delicate equilibrium of this seemingly solid foundation was built upon shifting sands. For Ezra, the very man who formed the nucleus of Adrienne's devoted world, had a far more expansive, perhaps even self-indulgent, conception of his own personal universe, his world, a realm far more capacious and morally ambiguous than Adrienne's fiercely guarded domesticity. Shockingly, unforgivably, encompassed someone else entirely. He was, in the blunt, almost cavalier parlance of unbridled narcissism and unapologetic desire, talking about having his cake and eating it too. This crude colloquialism, laden with an air of entitled impunity, painted a vivid, profoundly painful portrait of Ezra's detached approach to marital fidelity and emotional commitment. It bespoke a man who believed himself capable of simultaneously maintaining the veneer of his long-standing marital obligations while actively, knowingly, pursuing gratification and companionship beyond its sacred boundaries. It implied a callous disregard for Adrienne's feelings, an almost insolent assertion of his right to indulge every whim without suffering the inconvenient consequences or acknowledging the profound hurt such a dual existence would inevitably inflict. Such a declaration, delivered perhaps with a dismissive wave of the hand or a patronizing shrug, would land on Adrienne's hypersensitive heart not merely as an insult, but as a tectonic shift, threatening to fracture the very world she had so carefully constructed. The agonizing dawning of this bleak, inescapable truth for Adrienne came not through sudden, cathartic confrontation, but through the insidious drip-drip of digital evidence, in a moment that must have been steeped in a horrifying mixture of dread and grim determination. She found a chain of emails between her husband and the woman. This discovery, undoubtedly made with trembling hand and a pounding heart, would have been an intimate, brutal invasion into the most private recesses of her marital trust. Each open email, each scrolling line of affectionate prose or clandestine planning would have acted as a shard of glass, cutting deeper into her psyche, transforming vague suspicions into an irrefutable, crushing reality. It was an infidelity laid bare, not through whispered rumors or tearful confessions, but through the cold, unfeeling permanence of digital text, etching the betrayal into her memory with an indelible cruelty. The meticulousness of the digital trail spoke not of a fleeting indiscretion, but of a calculated, ongoing deception, a parallel life Ezra was actively building one email at a time. Upon this shattering discovery, in a poignant display of emotional resilience and a deeply ingrained instinct to protect her family, Adrienne, though undoubtedly reeling, sought to handle the crisis with protective calmness. As her daughter, Jessica, would later recall, Adrienne, in an effort to shield her children from the immediate fallout of this marital catastrophe. My mom kind of said, "Let me deal with it." This statement, uttered with quiet resolve, hinted at Adrienne's internal struggle, her profound desire to manage this explosive truth without causing further fragmentation within. Their already delicate family unit, it was a declaration born of deep-seated habit, perhaps an ingrained coping mechanism developed over a lifetime of dealing with emotional upheaval, of managing difficult situations herself without external interference. This quiet vow to confront the infidelity alone, to protect her offspring from the agonizing specifics of her husband's betrayal, established a solemn, private timeline, a moment of resolution and determination that would ultimately culminate in a horrifying climax. And on the auspicious, yet tragically fateful New Year's Day of 2009, in a twist of irony as profound as it was devastating, she did indeed deal with it. The manner of her resolution, however, transcended mere marital counseling or amicable separation. It spiraled into an act of definitive, irreversible violence, leaving a profound and indelible scar on the lives of all who knew them. The grim, unsparing details of this tragic outcome would soon be laid bare in the official report. My cause of death is a gunshot to the back of the head. This chillingly precise medical pronouncement, devoid of all emotion yet laden with the full weight of human tragedy, instantly spoke volumes. It implied an ambush, an act carried out with calculated precision, in a moment of utter vulnerability, an intimate betrayal perpetrated from a position of trust, from behind. The initial, urgent questions that would undoubtedly raise to the minds of law enforcement, family members, and a stunned community would quickly coalesce around two grim possibilities. Was this heinous act, this unspeakable violence, the deadly revenge of the scorned wife? The archetype of the wronged woman, pushed beyond the brink of endurance, seeking retribution for betrayal, is a narrative deeply ingrained in the human psyche, easily conjured in moments of crisis. A commentator, perhaps alluding to the pervasive societal view of female revenge, or even Adrienne's historical background, might offer a pointed observation. The maiden family got her way in it. This potentially suggests a long-standing pattern of assertiveness or a powerful matriarchal influence that Adrienne was drawing upon in a twisted display of power. Or, alternatively, was it the impulsive act of a desperate woman, a catastrophic explosion of raw, untamed emotion, a sudden, unpremeditated lashing out from an individual utterly overwhelmed by an unbearable confluence of pain, betrayal, and perceived helplessness? The narrative of a sudden, uncontrolled breaking point, often seen in cases of extreme emotional distress, would frame the act as reactive, born of an immediate and unbearable agony. She just couldn't take it anymore at that moment, and just stabbed was an example of the kind of raw, desperate, almost animalistic act of violence that often characterizes impulsive manslaughter. While the quote uses stabbed, the medical finding indicated a gunshot. This discrepancy suggests the raw, early speculation surrounding a moment of utter despair, before the forensic details were fully processed. regardless of the precise mechanism initially contemplated. The psychological driver of such an act was universally recognized. The app, likely an error in transcription, perhaps originally meaning the agony or the breaking point. This suggested a profound loss of control, an ultimate collapse of a woman's emotional fortitude. The investigation, meticulous and unyielding, would delve into every nuance, every shadowy corner of Adrienne's past and present, seeking to unravel the truth behind this tragic end to a 24-year marriage. Pomona, California, a city known for its vibrant blend of suburban tranquility and dynamic academic and commercial life, nestled comfortably within the vast, sprawling expanse of Los Angeles County. It was here, in the heart of this seemingly ordinary middle-class suburb, that the quiet, hopeful promises of New Year's Day, 2009, were irrevocably shattered by a single, violent act. The clock had barely ticked past the witching hour, striking somewhere around 2 a.m. on this nascent day of fresh beginnings and renewed resolutions. 21-year-old Jessica Davidson, still buzzing with the lingering euphoria of a friend's lively New Year's party, found her festive mood abruptly curtailed by a truly curious phone call from her mother, Adrienne. The unexpected late-night contact, its tone perhaps tinged with an unusual urgency or an uncharacteristic strain, immediately sparked a quiet unease in Jessica's young mind. Her routine at that hour had been centered on a peaceful conclusion to the celebrations. We were getting ready to go back and go to bed, and I get this phone call that I need come home. The command, clear and insistent, without immediate explanation, indicated a situation far removed from the joyful anticipation of the new year. It was an urgent summons, a foreboding whisper that cut through the celebratory clamor. As requested, or perhaps more accurately, as commanded, Jessica and her boyfriend immediately altered their plans, navigating the quiet, pre-dawn streets to drive back to her parents' sprawling suburban home. This was a residence that, to outward appearances, embodied the very essence of American middle-class stability and comfort, a place where, in ordinary times, one would expect peace and domestic harmony. Upon their arrival, the scene that greeted them was subtly, yet profoundly unsettling. There, she found 46-year-old Adrienne Davidson waiting outside. This detail was striking. Why would her mother be waiting outside, exposed to the chill of the early morning air, rather than ensconced within the presumed safety of her home? The visual of Adrienne standing alone in front of the door heightened Jessica's apprehension. I see her right in front of the door, and I ask her, "What's going on? Why did you call me in the middle of the night?" Jessica's questions undoubtedly imbue a mixture of concern, confusion, and a burgeoning sense of alarm, sought immediate clarification for profound disruption to her New Year's Eve celebrations. Adrienne's immediate response to her daughter's urgent questions was not a clarification, but a deliberate, almost strategic, evasion. Adrienne's answer was evasive. Instead of offering a direct explanation for the late-night summons or the unusual circumstances, she skillfully deflected, revealing nothing of the true, horrifying events that had transpired within the house. She didn't explain what was happening. She just told her daughter that she needed a ride. The request itself was laden with an unsettling peculiarity, given the availability of vehicles and the late hour. Her response is, "Can your boyfriend take me too?" The question was a carefully constructed minimalist appeal, devoid of context, designed to solicit a ride without betraying the gravity of her immediate past actions. Her refusal to offer an explanation, her insistence on merely needing transportation, spoke volumes to the astute observer. She perceived, and perhaps correctly, that there was no need to explain the deeper, more complex reasons for her sudden and urgent need to leave the residence. Jessica, even without the explicit details, possessed a deep, intuitive understanding of the fragile domestic landscape that constituted her parents' 24-year marriage. She knew that her mother and father's marriage was in trouble. The cracks in their familial foundation had become painfully apparent just a mere 2 weeks prior to this fateful New Year's morning, when Ezra Davidson, her father, had delivered a crushing blow to Adrienne, admitting with shocking candor that he was having an affair. This revelation, in itself, would have been a traumatic event for Jessica, challenging her perceptions of her parents' seemingly stable union. The aftermath of Ezra's confession had been a stark ultimatum, a cruel ultimatum that offered Adrienne an untenable choice. Ezra told Adrienne that she could leave him or she could live with the fact that he has this mistress. This pronouncement, cold and uncompromising, highlighted Ezra's deeply self-serving attitude, demanding that Adrienne either accept his infidelity or sever their marital ties. For Jessica, interpreting her mother's late night, evasive call for the lens of this recent and deeply distressing marital strife, a logical conclusion, a default assumption, immediately took root in her mind. At this point, I'm thinking, okay, they got into a fight. It was a plausible, almost comforting interpretation given the raw tensions of an unfaithful spouse and a wronged wife. Such arguments, though painful, were part of the tumultuous landscape of a marriage in crisis, and usually ended with one party storming out to cool down. And Jessica Davidson, in her deduction, wasn't entirely wrong in her basic premise. Indeed, a monumental argument, one of profound final consequence, had most certainly transpired within the walls of their suburban home. There had been a fight, but the critical, horrifying divergence from Jessica's assumption lay in her father's physical presence. Ezra, her father, had not, in the customary fashion of post-argument fury, left. His absence from the scene, the reason her mother was waiting outside, was far more definitive, more permanent than a temporary departure. He was still within the house, ensconced in his marital bed, upstairs in bed, and he was dead. The final, unsparing truth would be revealed not by her mother's words, but by the cold, unequivocal facts of forensics. The definitive, tragic end to his life will be officially pronounced as: the cause of death is a gunshot to the back of the head. The subtle yet chilling shift from the speculated stab to the actual gunshot, in a forensic, reveal underscored the cold, hard, unassailable facts that now superseded all initial speculation. Born in the vibrant cultural crucible of 1962, Adrienne Parrott, later Davidson, carved her formative years out of the comfortable, albeit complex, landscape of suburban New Jersey. Her early life was defined, at least superficially, by a distinct upward mobility and a solid foundation of professional achievement within her immediate family. Her father was a very successful dentist, graduated from Morehouse College, and always lived very, very upper middle class, a description that painted a picture of privilege and adherence to societal norms of success. This background offered Adrienne all the material comforts that money could buy: spacious homes, quality education, and the subtle, often unspoken, advantages that accrue from such a prosperous upbringing. However, beneath this gleaming veneer of comfortable suburban existence, Adrienne's childhood was far from the idealized, joyous experience one might expect. Indeed, it was not happy, marred instead by deep-seated emotional and physical wounds that would shape the contours of her personality and the trajectory of her adult relationships. Her mother, she would later describe, was a figure of profound emotional detachment, lacking in overt affection or warmth. She had a mother who wasn't very emotional or outwardly loving, a coldness that would leave an aching void in Adrienne's young, impressionable heart. This maternal frigidity was starkly juxtaposed and tragically compounded by her father's intimidating, often brutal, disciplinary methods, and a father who only knew how to discipline by scaring his children with his fist. This was not merely strictness, but a terrifying unpredictability that instilled fear rather than respect. Adrienne, as the eldest of 3 daughters, tragically bore the brunt of this harsh domestic environment, suffering the most. The physical abuse she endured was particularly severe, leaving indelible scars both visible and unseen. Their father beat her with a tree branch, a brutal detail that painted a picture of gratuitous, violent punishment, far exceeding any reasonable form of discipline. The cruelty was specifically targeted, raising profound questions about the dynamics within that troubled family. He had 3 daughters, but for some reason, Adrienne was the one who he really directed a lot of physical abuse towards. This particularization of violence against Adrienne, distinguishing her from her siblings as the primary recipient of her father's brutality, spoke volumes about a deeper, perhaps pathological, dynamic at play, a psychological burden she carried alone. The suffering Adrienne endured was not limited to the physical realm. It was profoundly emotional and psychological, systematically eroding her sense of self-worth and confidence. Physical abuse wasn't all Adrienne suffered either. Her father, wielding words as cruelly as he did his fists, inflicted deep emotional wounds. Her father would ridicule her, would talk down to her, took her away, her confidence. This insidious form of abuse, characterized by constant denigration and belittling, chipped away at Adrienne's self-esteem, leaving her vulnerable and psychologically diminished. The cumulative effect of such a toxic upbringing, characterized by emotional coldness, physical violence, and verbal abuse, would profoundly mold Adrienne's adult psyche, particularly influencing her capacity for healthy attachments and her deeply ingrained patterns of codependency. She was, in essence, a young woman profoundly shaped by trauma, carrying its heavy baggage into every subsequent chapter of her life. Following her high school graduation, Adrienne's father, exerting his formidable patriarchal influence, orchestrated the next significant chapter of her life with a pragmatic, almost calculating efficiency. He shipped her off to Spelman College, a highly respected, historically African-American women's liberal arts institution. This choice of school was deeply intertwined with his own educational lineage. Spelman, he noted, was associated with his alma mater, Morehouse, establishing a continuation of legacy and an expectation of academic excellence. However, beneath this veneer providing a stellar educational opportunity, his true motivations, according to Adrienne's later reflections, were far less focused on intellectual pursuits. But he didn't really send her there to get an education. This blunt assertion highlighted his deeper, more traditional patriarchal expectations for his daughter's future. In Adrienne's perception, her goal was to find a husband, reflecting a pragmatic, if emotionally constrained, view of higher education as a pathway to marital security rather than personal and professional empowerment. It was a mission imposed, not chosen, for Adrienne, deeply ingrained from her formative, emotionally abusive environment. True to the implicit directive, it did not take Adrienne long to identify a potential candidate to fulfill her father's unspoken marital decree. In 1981, as a fresh-faced freshman navigating the vibrant social scene of college life, she initiated a romantic relationship with a young man from the bustling metropolis of Detroit named Ezra Davidson. Their burgeoning relationship was, in many ways, eerily preordained, almost an arranged match, bearing the subtle hallmarks of familial engineering. Adrienne's dad and Ezra's dad were friends at Morehouse College, a powerful, intertwining connection that undoubtedly provided an auspicious foundation for their children's courtship. This pre-existing bond between their fathers likely exerted a quiet, yet undeniable, pressure on Adrienne to pursue the relationship with Ezra, reinforcing her ingrained pattern of seeking approval and fulfilling external expectations. However, while her initial motivations for dating Ezra may have been rooted in a desire to please her father, a deeper, more genuine emotion quickly took root in Adrienne's heart. Transcending mere duty or filial obligation, Adrienne soon found herself genuinely fell in love. For her, Ezra represented a stark and exhilarating contrast to the emotionally abusive and physically, intimidating patriarch who had cast such a long, damaging shadow over her childhood. He's goofy and silly and adventurous, and just wanted to live life to the fullest. Adrienne would describe him, her words painting a vibrant, appealing portrait of a man exuding a joyful, unburdened spirit, qualities diametrically opposed to her own oppressive upbringing. Here's a man who she thought was totally different from her dad, a beacon of light in her often dark emotional landscape. She not only found him charming, but also intellectually stimulating. Here's a man who she admired as intellect. His gentle demeanor and calm composure also offered a stark, comforting contrast to her father's volatile temper. She admired his demeanor. I mean, he was what she thought in her mind that a man should be. In her traumatized and emotionally vulnerable state, Ezra embodied an almost idealized figure, fulfilling her deep, unfulfilled longing for warmth, stability, and intellectual companionship. The force of this emotional connection was overwhelming, and she just fell head over heels. This profound, all-consuming love for Ezra, born from a desperate need for a healthier masculine figure than her father, would paradoxically lead her to the precipice of unimaginable despair. The depth of Adrienne's devotion and her profound emotional dependence on Ezra became horrifyingly evident when, in 1983, he initiated a breakup. This seemingly ordinary collegiate parting of ways triggered a catastrophic emotional crisis in Adrienne, rendering her utterly devastated. For a woman whose identity was so intertwined with Ezra, and whose childhood had instilled a deep-seated fear of abandonment and a fragile sense of self-worth, his departure was not merely a heartbreak, but an existential threat, a brutal echoing of her early trauma. That's when she attempted suicide. Her actions, drastic and profoundly desperate, underscored the severity of her psychological distress and her inability to cope with such a profound loss. She went out, she bought a bottle of sleeping pills, and she took the whole bottle. It was a raw, visceral cry for help, a desperate bid for control over her pain, or perhaps a dramatic plea for Ezra's return. Fortunately, Adrienne failed to take her life. The attempt, though serious, did not result in death. She ended up waking up in the hospital, a harrowing testament to her survival. The aftermath of this traumatic event led to a necessary period of professional intervention and containment, and then she was institutionalized briefly in a mental hospital. This professional assessment and treatment highlighted the severe psychological breakdown she had experienced, underscoring the deep-seated issues that had been festering beneath her outward demeanor. If the suicide attempt, in part, had been aimed at getting Ezra's attention, then tragically, in the immediate term, it succeeded. The sheer dramatic impact of her near-fatal act undoubtedly reverberated through Ezra, triggering a reconsideration of their relationship. Once she was released from the hospital, the couple did indeed get back together. For a time, their renewed relationship appeared idyllic to outsiders. They were a cute little couple, and they interacted very well together. It just seemed like they were two peas in a pod. The crisis, it seemed, had drawn them back together, but the underlying psychological dynamics that had led to Adrienne's desperation, her profound dependency, remained unresolved, quietly festering beneath the surface of their rekindled romance. In 1984, Adrienne and Ezra, having weathered the tumultuous storm of her suicide attempt and their brief separation, formalized their enduring, if complicated, bond. They married. The early years of their marriage were characterized by a pragmatic partnership, driven by a mutual commitment to building a shared future. With Ezra still immersed in his academic pursuits, Adrienne took on the primary financial responsibility. She dropped out of school and worked as a secretary to support the couple while he completed his degree. This self-sacrificing act, prioritizing Ezra's education over her own, further cemented her deeply ingrained patterns of self-effacement and dependency, a legacy of her abusive childhood. Her academic ambitions, if they ever fully crystallized, were put indefinitely on hold. she never finished college. 3 years later, the family unit expanded with a joyous arrival. Adrienne gave birth to Jessica. With the advent of their first child, the roles within the marriage began to shift, and it was Ezra's turn to support their growing family. Ezra, equipped with his freshly minted degree, embarked on a professional career that promised intellectual stimulation and financial stability. He originally was an accountant and along the way became involved in media, a field that would leverage his innate talents and innovative spirit. His aptitude for the evolving technological landscape was clear. He's very knowledgeable, very technically savvy. Over the ensuing years, Ezra's professional journey saw him working for several information and media companies, each step a testament to his ambition and talent. The family's life, inextricably tied to Ezra's career ascent, was characterized by mobility. As Jessica would later recall, growing up, we moved around a lot. We lived in Atlanta, New York, California. Each relocation marked a new chapter in Ezra's career, but also, perhaps, a continuous upheaval for Adrienne, whose world was defined by her husband and children, always adapting to Ezra's professional needs. Despite his steady advancement within various corporations, Ezra Davidson possessed an innate, restless ambition that yearned for something beyond the confines of mere employment. But he wasn't content just being an employee. He had the entrepreneurial spirit. This drive, this relentless pursuit of autonomy and significant wealth, became a defining characteristic of his professional life. His personal commitment to this grand ambition was physically embodied in a striking symbolic gesture. He carried a check with him for $1 million, and his goal was to be able to cash that check. This was more than a mere keepsake. It was a potent totem of his aspirations, a constant visual reminder of his relentless pursuit of financial independence and monumental success. In 1998, this long-held dream began to crystallize into tangible reality. Ezra, in collaboration with several partners, embarked on the ambitious endeavor of forming their own company. The enterprise was visionary, at the very forefront of emerging technologies. Their core focus was working with digital content so that it could be streamed and sold on the internet, a cutting-edge concept that tapped into the nascent digital revolution of its era. It was a cutting-edge concept for its time, underscoring the innovative spirit that defined Ezra's professional pursuits. Like many pioneering ventures, the company's genesis was not without its inevitable challenges and initial uncertainties. It was pretty rocky in the beginning, a frank admission of the inherent difficulties in breaking new technological ground. To navigate these early turbulences and propel the nascent company toward success, Ezra deployed all his considerable charisma and innate charm. He possessed a captivating personal magnetism, an almost infectious enthusiasm that was instrumental in winning over clients and investors alike. Ezra was like a used car salesman, an astute observation, not meant as a slight, but as an acknowledgement of his persuasive prowess. He had that vibe. It was 100%. It was great. Everything was awesome, and people bought into that. His unbridled optimism and ability to paint a compelling vision of the future were invaluable assets, inspiring confidence and trust in his venture. Adrienne, who had given birth to a son in 2000, often found herself on the periphery of this dynamic business world Ezra now inhabited. Her world remained distinct, her focus singular. While Ezra was actively engaged, entertaining clients, and building his burgeoning empire, Adrienne rarely accompanied him. She didn't really want to be around people. This preference for solitude, or at least a contained social environment, stood in stark contrast to Ezra's outwardly gregarious business persona. For Adrienne, true contentment lay within the boundaries of her home, her definition of fulfillment intensely private. Being at home with her kids and her husband, that's all she really needed. It underscored her deeply ingrained sense of family as her primary anchor, a retreat from a world she found overwhelming or simply unappealing. Yet, even around the office, within the very professional circles Ezra now navigated. There may have been subtle, unheeded signs that Ezra needed more than just business success or familial contentment. His inherent playfulness, the very charm that made him such a successful entrepreneur, also manifested in ways that hinted at a latent need for external validation, for flirtatious attention. He was just such a playful guy that it was just easy to goof around and have fun. An observer might note, highlighting his magnetic personality. This conviviality, however, sometimes edged into more ambiguous territory, whether it's some sexual innuendo or just something that made everybody kind of laugh. These subtle boundary-pushing behaviors, perhaps dismissed as harmless banter or mere office humor at the time, were, in hindsight, perhaps early indicators of a man who thrived on external validation and the admiration of others, a seed of future infidelity already planted. In the process of building his innovative company, Ezra Davidson not only achieved professional recognition, but also found himself becoming relatively rich. The ambitious entrepreneurial gamble had paid off handsomely. When he and his partners eventually sold the thriving company in 2007, it marked the pinnacle of his professional and financial success. This momentous achievement provided the means for a significant upgrade in their family's lifestyle. Ezra and Adrienne, seizing the opportunity, celebrated this milestone by acquiring a new house in suburban Pomona, a grand residence that reflected their elevated status. Ezra, with his characteristic grandiosity, explicitly instructed his wife to focus her search on properties in the price range of $700,000 to $800,000. And while he couldn't quite, at that moment, literally cash that $1 million check he kept in his pocket, a symbolic gesture more than a literal bank draft, he had, through shrewd financial management and the profits from his company's sale, been able to commit a substantial amount to their new acquisition. He successfully put approximately half that amount down on the new house, a testament to his considerable wealth. This allowed them to secure the expansive home with a remarkably manageable financial burden. He took out a mortgage for only $300,000. To comfortably service this relatively modest mortgage and maintain their newly acquired, luxurious lifestyle, Ezra continued his professional endeavors, taking a job at another media company. His drive for continued success and financial provision remained undiminished. Adrienne, on the other hand, fully embraced her role as matriarch of the household and steward of their impressive new residence. She stayed busy taking care of the new house and their family, creating a comfortable and nurturing environment for their children. Her presence within the home was constant. She was pretty much home all the time. Neighbors and casual observers noted her domestic engagement. I see her sometimes gardening in her backyard. They had a beautiful pool and the hill in the backyard, elements of a dream suburban existence. For the most part, outwardly, Adrienne appeared satisfied with her quiet upper-middle-class life in a peaceful suburban neighborhood. Her world, though materially opulent, remained insular, deeply entrenched in her historical patterns of emotional dependency and introversion. She didn't have a lot of friends. She didn't have a social life. Her entire social and emotional universe, as it had been for so long, remained intensely circumscribed, confined to Ezra and her children. As the year 2008 began its slow, inevitable decline toward its close, ushering in the hopeful promise of a new year, Ezra Davidson, unlike Adrienne, found himself profoundly satisfied with his life too, but for a very different reason. His contentment stemmed not from domestic tranquility or an insular family focus, but from a surge of newfound freedom and intoxicating rediscovery of self. Following his professional triumph, after he and his partner had successfully sold their company, purchasing a grand new house was merely one facet of his larger, more effusive celebration. The period following the sale unleashed a torrent of self-indulgence and an almost reckless display of newly acquired wealth. After we sold the company, there was a lot of celebrating and going out. Ezra, in particular, reveled in this opulent new phase, establishing himself as the one that was just a big spender. His generosity was lavish, almost theatrical. He treated everybody out to dinner in the most expensive place possible. His personal philosophy, a reflection of his expansive and hedonistic spirit, permeated every action. Everything about him was just big or go home. He approached his new wealth with a compelling, undeniable imperative. If he had it, he was going to spend it. Ezra's newfound wealth and extravagant lifestyle were not exclusively lavished upon his former employees or business associates. The opulent display, the larger-than-life persona he cultivated, possessed a potent, magnetic allure. It attracted certain people. It attracted women, younger women. Ezra, now squarely in his late 40s, at a stage of life where many men seek stability, found his burgeoning attention from younger women deeply, deliciously flattering. It provided an exhilarating validation, a powerful reaffirmation of his virility and desirability, which fed directly into his burgeoning ego. It was fun. It was exciting. It fed his ego. It was something new for him. This was a potent combination, a seductive cocktail of novelty, power, and sexual appeal that he found impossible to resist. He was experiencing a reawakening, a rebellion against the assumed conventions of his long-standing marriage, seeking external gratification for needs that, perhaps, remained unfulfilled within his domestic sphere. Soon, however, what had begun as a seemingly harmless pursuit of flattering attention evolved into something far more concrete and deeply deceptive. Ezra's friends, initially dismissive or perhaps complicit in his harmless flirtations, gradually began to perceive a distinct and undeniable shift in his behavior. Ezra's friends realized that he was after more than flattering. The casual dalliances had transformed into a serious, concealed relationship, moving beyond mere ego-stroking into the realm of infidelity. A specific social gathering solidified their dawning understanding of Ezra's deeper involvement. We were having a house party, and a group of 3 women arrived. The distinct characteristics of this new group were immediately apparent. They were younger women in college. Their attire, conspicuously styled for a club or a party, further accentuated their youthful, vibrant presence, a stark contrast to Adrienne's more subdued demeanor. Ezra, with an almost audacious disregard for the implications, openly introduced his friends to this new woman, subtly marking her as significant. And he introduced me to one girl in particular that I understood was the girl that he was interested in and started to see. The unspoken reality of an extramarital affair with a woman significantly younger and from a different world than his wife was now firmly established among his confidants. At the time, caught in a complex web of loyalty and a reluctance to meddle in deeply personal marital affairs, Ezra's friends chose not to divulge the unsettling truth of his infidelity to Adrienne. At the time, Ezra's friends didn't tell Adrienne about her husband's affair. Their motivations were likely multifaceted: a desire to avoid discomfort, a belief in the sanctity of marital privacy, and perhaps a subtle form of enabling. One friend articulated a nuanced rationale. I wasn't going to be very judgmental about that, and I also believe that he also felt that he can try to continue the relationship and continue his family life. This belief in Ezra's ability to compartmentalize, to maintain both his clandestine affair and the facade of his 24-year marriage, suggested a shared, if flawed, optimism that he could indeed have his cake and eat it too. However, after more than 2 decades of marriage, Adrienne, possessing an intimate and deeply intuitive knowledge of her husband's subtle shifts in behavior and attention, eventually began to suspect that Ezra was up to something. The quiet currents of her husband's emotional and physical absence, the growing disconnect, eventually surfaced as undeniable suspicion, stirring within her profound and unsettling dread. On December 14th, 2008, with a chilling foreboding in her heart, Adrienne's mounting suspicions converged with strategic opportunity. She approached her 21-year-old daughter, Jessica, requesting her technical expertise for what seemed, on the surface, like an ordinary parental request, help with her father's computer. However, the nature of Adrienne's demeanor and her evasiveness regarding the specific goal signaled a deeper, more personal quest. She's trying to get information off the computer. She doesn't tell me what she's looking for, Jessica recounted, noting her mother's deliberate reticence. This unspoken purpose, this guarded secrecy, hinted at the profound sensitivity of the information Adrienne sought. Jessica, unwitting of the marital abyss her mother was about to unveil, dutifully assisted her mother in gaining access to Ezra's email account, the act of navigating through Ezra's private digital correspondence, a task that would prove to be a profound invasion of marital privacy, led Adrienne directly to what she was looking for. Her fears, her suspicions, all the anxieties that had been quietly festering in her mind, were chillingly confirmed. She found a chain of emails between her husband and the woman. Each email, a digital testament to Ezra's betrayal, would have delivered a crushing blow, transforming a gnawing uncertainty into an irrefutable, agonizing reality. These digital breadcrumbs meticulously outlined the contours of Ezra's extramarital affair, removing any shred of doubt from Adrienne's mind. For Jessica, witnessing this devastating discovery firsthand, the news of her father's infidelity was utterly blindsided. The innocence of her familial perceptions was irrevocably shattered, and a profound, personal sense of betrayal, almost an empathic disgust, washed over her. Makes me pretty sick to my stomach, more so because she's my age. The mistress's proximity and age to Jessica added a particularly bitter and unsettling layer of betrayal, deepening the sense of her father's disrespect. The content of the unearthed emails provided undeniable, crushing evidence that Ezra's affair was not a mere fleeting dalliance or a casual indiscretion. It was rapidly evolving into a deeply entrenched, long-term relationship. A parallel life Ezra was actively building. The digital correspondence, laid bare for Adrienne's agonizing consumption, contained details that bespoke a significant emotional and financial investment. In the email, he's stating that he wants to fly her out to Vegas so that he can see her, and if things go well, that he'd be willing to pay for her tuition and her rent. These commitments were not trivial. They painted a picture of Ezra as a sugar daddy, a patron actively supporting his mistress's life. Further incriminating evidence emerged from other communications. Other emails revealed that Ezra had also bought the young woman a car, a substantial gift that further underscored the seriousness and the financial depth of his extramarital relationship. The systematic showering of gifts and financial support revealed a pattern of increasing demands from the mistress, which Ezra, in his desire to maintain the affair, seemingly indulged. She just continued to ask for more and more, and Ezra's nature was to be very giving. This trait, ordinarily admirable, was now twisted into a destructive force. According to Ezra's daughter, Jessica, the financial aspect of the affair was particularly egregious, stirring a profound anger in Adrienne. The money he was taking from his family and showering on his mistress made Adrienne especially angry. The injustice of it, the blatant redirection of familial resources, fueled a deep maternal fury. She couldn't believe that this was happening. Her indignation was exacerbated by a stark, personal contrast. He is buying her a car and paying for her tuition when I'm driving around in a piece of junk. This personal slight, the emotional sting of comparative neglect, coupled with a profound betrayal, pushed Adrienne to a new level of outrage. Jessica herself was equally incensed by her father's blatant hypocrisy and self-serving actions. Jessica was angry, too, sharing her mother's visceral sense of injustice. Driven by a clear-eyed conviction of her father's wrongdoing, Jessica vehemently urged her mother to do something about the affair. Her advice was pragmatic, rooted in a healthy sense of boundaries and consequences. Her daughter encouraged her to leave her husband and find a lawyer so that she could file for divorce. What's supposed to happen is you either figure out or you get a divorce and you move on with your life. However, Adrienne, deeply ensnared in a web of emotional dependency and past trauma, appeared to gravitate toward a different path, one that, on the surface, prioritized reconciliation over separation. According to Jessica's observation, Adrienne seemingly preferred the first option, working it out. Her response to her daughter's urgent counsel for divorce was delivered with a quiet, yet firm directive. My mom kind of said, "Don't approach your father. Let me deal with it." This statement, outwardly composed, masked a swirling tempest of conflicting emotions and deeply ingrained psychological patterns. It reflected Adrienne's long-standing habit of shouldering emotional burdens alone, a coping mechanism forged in her tumultuous childhood. Crucially, although in hindsight, Adrienne didn't say how she intended to deal with her husband's affair, this omission, a lack of explicit detail, would later take on a terrifying significance. At the time, Jessica, like any well-meaning daughter, interpreted her mother's words in the most optimistic, conventional sense. I thought that she meant that she would talk to him. The profound, tragic irony was that Adrienne's method of dealing with it would ultimately diverge into a path far more violent and final than a mere conversation. The initial phone call, so curious to Jessica, would quickly reveal its true, chilling purpose. Coming up, Adrienne requests a ride to the police station. This specific, unsettling destination immediately flagged the call as far more than a minor domestic dispute. Jessica's internal reaction captured the mounting dread. I'm freaking out because it's a very unusual request. Police stations were places of official severity, of consequences, not casual late-night drop-offs. The palpable shift from a domestic argument to a formal interaction with law enforcement bespoke a radical change in the situation, one that demanded immediate and terrifying clarity. And then the inevitable climax, the stark, brutal unveiling of the truth that lay beneath her mother's calm exterior. And then she makes a shocking confession. The scene would unfold with a grim, almost cinematic swiftness. She came into the station and basically told the deputy, "I shot my husband." These words, uttered with chilling, understated directness, would transform a New Year's Day into a tableau of unimaginable tragedy and irrevocable legal consequences, ripping apart the fabric of their seemingly placid suburban life. Pomona, California, the first blush of New Year's Day, 2009, had already begun its inexorable march towards morning. The early hours still steeped in the afterglow of celebration for some, but shrouded in an ominous, deepening dread for others. It was a little after 2 o'clock in the morning when 46-year-old Adrienne Davidson, her mind undoubtedly a maelstrom of conflicting emotions, had initiated that fateful, unsettling phone call to her 21-year-old daughter, Jessica. The instruction, delivered with an uncharacteristic, unexplained urgency, was simple. She asked her daughter to come home. Jessica, accompanied by her boyfriend, had been readying herself for sleep after a friend's New Year's Eve party, a night of revelry now abruptly curtailed by her mother's enigmatic summons. She didn't explain why. The lack of an immediate, coherent explanation, itself a significant anomaly, instantly injected a chilling sense of foreboding into Jessica's night. However, despite her mother's profound evasiveness, Jessica Davidson was far from ignorant of the underlying turmoil that had been slowly, inexorably eroding the foundations of her parents' 24-year marriage. She knew, with a certainty born of intimate familial observation, about the trouble in her parents' marriage. This profound distress stemmed, most directly and brutally, from a fact that her father was having an affair. Armed with this knowledge, and piecing together her mother's anxious tone with the reality of their ongoing marital crisis, Jessica began to construct a plausible, if emotionally fraught, scenario in her mind, a logical extrapolation of the events that might have transpired. What I'm imagining happened was that they got into a really big fight, and she said that she wasn't going to take it anymore, and he got really upset. This interpretation was a projection of understandable marital tension, a dramatic but ultimately non-lethal confrontation. In her imagined narrative, the culmination of such an argument, in Adrienne's traumatized state, could easily lead to an overwrought reaction, and she just felt fearful for herself and her kids. This empathetic projection of fear aligned with a desperate act of self-preservation, or perhaps escape. In retrospect, Jessica's speculative scenario, rooted in a mother's instinctual fear, aligned closely with Adrienne's carefully cultivated post-event demeanor. Indeed, that's more or less the way Adrienne acted when Jessica and her boyfriend finally arrived at the Davidson residence. The house, usually a bastion of quiet domesticity, now held a terrifying secret within its walls. Unknown to Jessica, Adrienne, ever with a singular focus on her children, even in her moment of profound distress, immediately instructed her daughter in a manner suggesting protection and an attempt to maintain a semblance of normalcy, or at least a shielded version of it. She gets my brother up and tells me that we need to go to my grandparents' house. This directive to separate the children from the scene of the crime, under the guise of an urgent, late-night family visit, underscored Adrienne's persistent, if deeply twisted maternal concern, while Jessica's boyfriend took on the immediate responsibility of driving Adrienne to an L.A. County sheriff's substation. A destination of alarming implications, Jessica dutifully complied, driving her much younger, 8-year-old brother to the relative safety of their grandparents' home. For Jessica, the events unfolding were increasingly disorienting and terrifying. I'm freaking out at about this time because it's a very unusual request. The cascading abnormalities of the night, the middle-of-the-night call, the evasive explanations, the destination of police station, all converge to ignite a raw, unbridled panic within her. Unfortunately for Jessica, her night, already stretched taut with anxiety and confusion, was poised to plunge into an even deeper abyss of distress and terrifying uncertainty. The phone, a harbinger of previous disquiet, rang again, delivering a new, profoundly unwelcome development. My boyfriend calls and says, "You need to come get me at the police station because you're going to hold my car overnight." This practical inconvenience, though seemingly minor, was a precursor to a far more sinister unfolding. The police station, the place where her mother had inexplicably demanded to be taken, now held both her boyfriend and their vehicle. Jessica, responding to the urgency, promptly drive us back to the police station, only to find herself, along with her younger brother, who had likely been brought to the scene after being dropped off at his grandparents, caught in the widening net of a police investigation. And now the police want to hold all three of us there until they're done questioning my mom. The sudden, unexplained detention of all the Davidson children and Jessica's boyfriend, without clear reasons, intensified Jessica's fear and frustration. The sheriff's deputies, bound by protocol and the unfolding gravity of the situation, wouldn't say why they needed to hold them. Their professional reticence, while necessary, fueled Jessica's terror. "That just doesn't go down very well," she recalled. An understatement that belied the profound emotional impact. "I just get pretty hysterical and really don't understand why I'm here and what's happening." The raw confusion, the suffocating anxiety of the unknown, gripped Jessica, making her an unwilling, traumatized participant in the aftermath of a crime she could not yet fathom. What Jessica, in her understandable state of shock and escalating panic, was agonizingly unaware was a cataclysmic event that had just unfolded. Her mother, Adrienne, had, with a chilling calmness, just made a truly startling confession. Upon arrival at the L.A. County Sheriff's substation, the facade of a distraught wife seeking help for a domestic dispute had quickly dissolved, revealing a darker, more definitive truth. She came into the station and basically told the deputy, "This is what I did. I shot my husband." These words, delivered with an almost eerie composure to the bewildered desk deputy, shattered the quiet hum of the early morning station, instantly transforming a routine shift into an urgent crime scene deployment. Within mere minutes of this stark, unambiguous admission, squad cars from the Pomona Police Department had been dispatched to Adrienne's house, sirens screaming through the pre-dawn suburban quiet, signaling a profound disturbance to the peace. The scene upon their arrival bore out Adrienne's confession in stark, undeniable visual terms. We saw the police cars, and everything in the house lit up like a Christmas tree. All the lights were on, Jessica would later recount, vividly recalling the chaotic, police-lit scene that had once been her familiar home. The ultimate confirmation of Adrienne's chilling confession came from within the master bedroom, the very sanctuary where Ezra had sought sleep, unaware of the violence that awaited him. In the master bedroom, the police found confirmation that Adrienne was telling the truth. The sight was grim and unequivocal. They find Ezra dead in his bed with a gunshot wound in the back of his head. This forensic detail not only corroborated Adrienne's account, but also painted a chilling picture of an ambush, an act carried out with calculated precision in a moment of extreme vulnerability, from a position of trust. By the time Jessica and her bewildered little brother eventually arrived at the station, her mother, no longer merely a confessant, was already ensconced in the interrogation room giving a formal statement, meticulously recounting the events of that fateful night to hardened investigators. The legal machinery had engaged, transforming a private marital tragedy into a public criminal investigation. In her formal statement to the investigators, Adrienne meticulously began to recount the devastating unraveling of her marriage, setting the stage for her desperate act. She specified the precise turning point. Adrienne told the investigators how on December 14th, she had discovered a series of emails her husband had sent a young woman, apparently a college student. The content of these emails left no room for doubt about the nature of their communication. It seemed like they were in some kind of relationship. Further, the explicit promises within those digital exchanges provided a clear picture of Ezra's financial support for his mistress. It said in the emails that he would be paying for her rent, paying for her tuition, and he also purchased her a car. This substantial financial investment in his mistress's life, while maintaining the pretense of his marriage, fueled Adrienne's profound sense of betrayal and injustice. Adrienne then recounted the confrontational aftermath of her discovery. Adrienne told the detectives that when she confronted her husband about the affair, he hadn't denied it. His lack of denial was, in itself, a further wound. But it was his response, a cruel and arrogant ultimatum, that pushed Adrienne toward despair. He had told Adrienne that he was going to either divorce her or she could accept that he was going to go out and have fun. This statement, devoid of apology or remorse, revealed Ezra's complete emotional detachment and his unapologetic embrace of a hedonistic lifestyle, regardless of profound pain he inflicted upon his wife. The stark choices he presented, divorce or silent acceptance of his infidelity, left Adrienne feeling profoundly trapped. According to Adrienne, the idea of a divorce terrified her. This fear stemmed from a confluence of deep-seated personal beliefs and practical anxieties. She didn't consider divorce for two reasons. She didn't believe in it publicly, and she didn't have anything to fall back on. Her public persona as a devout wife, her traditional values, were inextricably linked to her identity. More fundamentally, her lifelong dependency on Ezra, a legacy of her abusive childhood, had left her without the practical skills or emotional fortitude for independent survival. I think that Adrienne felt trapped. I think she felt that she would be completely lost and alone. Without Ezra, this sense of utter helplessness, a profound existential terror, underpinned her tragic decisions. Yet, despite Ezra's cruel ultimatum and Adrienne's deep-seated fear of divorce, her attempt to salvage the relationship or gain some concession proved utterly futile. With his affair now brazenly out in the open, Ezra, unburdened by secrecy, fully embraced his double life, further withdrawing from Adrienne and the marriage. Adrienne confessed that she had ended up alone anyway. His presence within the home diminished significantly. He began spending less and less time at their home and spending more time at a condo in Los Angeles, owned by his father. This physical distancing, coupled with his new, unapologetic attitude, was a calculated psychological torture. He was talking about having his cake and eating it too, and he was very happy and kind of bragging a little bit. This cruel flaunting of his affair, a display of unrepentant pleasure in his illicit relationship, became an unbearable torment for Adrienne, pushing her to the brink of her emotional endurance. Adrienne confessed to the investigators that her husband's flaunting of the affair quickly became more than she could take. The public humiliation, the profound sense of powerlessness, and the raw pain of betrayal coalesced into an unbearable psychological burden, and in that moment of utter desperation, pushed to the absolute breaking point, she told the investigators that she had decided to do something about it. The decision, chillingly, echoed a pattern of extreme behavior from her past, a desperate attempt to regain control in the face of perceived abandonment. The same thing she'd done the first time she feared she was losing Ezra. This was a direct reference to her college suicide attempt, an earlier, desperate attempt to reclaim attention and control. And with a chillingly detached clarity, Adrienne confessed to her revised, desperate plan. Adrienne decided after she found out about the affair that she was going to kill herself. However, the memory of her past, failed suicide attempt using sleeping pills during her college years, shaped Adrienne's approach to this renewed death wish. But since the sleeping pills hadn't worked back in college, resulting only in hospitalization and brief institutionalization, Adrienne determined a more definitive, surefire method was necessary this time. Her resolve was cold, logical in its tragic perversion. She decided that the best way to do it would be to shoot herself. The choice of a firearm, a definitive and highly lethal instrument, spoke to her desire for an irreversible end. Therefore, with this chilling new plan firmly entrenched in her mind, so she went to go and buy a gun. This act, the deliberate acquisition of a weapon intended for self-destruction, marked a profound and tragic turning point in her escalating psychological crisis. Adrienne then recounted the logistical hurdles she encountered during her desperate attempt to acquire a firearm, highlighting the procedural safeguards that inadvertently impacted her suicidal timeline. Adrienne said that had been the plan, but once she got to gun shop, she had apparently hit a snag. The snag, as she explained, was due to California's strict firearms laws. In California, you have to wait 10 days before you can actually get the gun after you ask for it. This mandatory waiting period, designed to prevent impulsive acts of violence, paradoxically affected Adrienne's suicidal intent. Adrienne told the investigators that she had gone ahead and ordered the gun, initiating the legal process for its acquisition. But crucially, she claimed that by the time she actually got it, she was no longer suicidal. This narrative shift from immediate suicidal intent to a later decision to keep the gun would become a pivotal point in her legal defense, an attempt to paint the purchase as a momentary despair rather than premeditation. She explained the transient nature of suicidal ideation with a nuanced observation. When you have somebody who's suicidal, they're not suicidal 24/7 all the time. It's peaks and valleys. This psychological insight was presented as a justification for her changed mindset. Adrienne claimed to the investigators that she had picked up the newly acquired firearm on December 29th, ostensibly no longer harboring immediate suicidal thoughts. She maintained that, while she no longer wanted to kill herself, she decided, with a surprising practicality, given her earlier desperation, to keep the gun anyway because she had paid for it. This mundane rationalization for retaining a lethal weapon, attributing it to a financial investment rather than a lingering dark intent, added another layer of complexity to her psychological profile. According to Adrienne's narrative, the gun remained stored discreetly in her bedroom closet. 2 days later, on the evening of New Year's Eve, as the family prepared for a final festive gathering of the year, the evening began by all outward appearances on a note of surprising, if strained, conviviality. Ezra, perhaps attempting to project an image of familial harmony, had bought champagne and dinner. Jessica, their daughter, was also present. Adrienne painted a picture of unexpected calm, stating that things were going pretty well, that they hung out, they were friendly with each other. This semblance of normalcy, this fleeting moment of family unity, masked the deep chasms of betrayal that still separated Ezra and Adrienne. Adrienne's account to the investigators continued, portraying a period of continued, uneasy tranquility even after their daughter, Jessica, departed for a party with her boyfriend, and their younger son had retired for the night. Adrienne told the investigators that things were still going well later that night after Jessica left for a party with her boyfriend and her little brother went to bed. The adult Davidsons remained awake, maintaining the veneer of a normal, affectionate couple. They even poured champagne and were planning to have a toast when the new year changed. They were, by Adrienne's admission, actively counting the minutes to the New Year's, presumably in anticipation of a shared celebration. However, despite the celebratory ambience, the champagne, and the surface-level camaraderie, a profound emotional chasm persisted. Adrienne reported a critical absence in Ezra's behavior at the stroke of midnight. But despite the champagne and despite the fact that she and Ezra had been getting on so well that night, Adrienne said midnight came and went without a kiss from her husband. This emotional void, this missed moment of intimacy, shattered the fragile facade. She felt disappointed, a familiar pang of neglect, and she said she's going to sleep. Ezra, seemingly oblivious or indifferent to her pain, offered a casual dismissal, and he said, "I'll join you soon." Adrienne's path to the master bedroom, anticipating Ezra's promised, albeit belated, presence, led her to a bed of increasingly agitated waiting. Adrienne told the investigators she had gone upstairs, gotten in bed and waited, but several minutes passed with no sign of Ezra. The quiet anticipation slowly curdled into a renewed anxiety, her mind undoubtedly racing with familiar suspicions and anxieties. She was wondering what was taking so long. The unanswered question, the lingering doubt, propelled her back downstairs. There, in a moment that cemented her worst fears, Adrienne told the investigators she had gone downstairs and found Ezra on his phone, texting someone. The intimate, secretive act of late-night digital communication provided the final, undeniable confirmation of her husband's continued infidelity. She assumed that he was texting the mistress. This cruel juxtaposition of his private pleasure against their marital distress, particularly on such a symbolically significant night, sparked a fresh wave of profound betrayal and rage within Adrienne. They celebrated New Year's Eve together, but he turned around and sent this woman a text message. It was the ultimate insult, a brutal confirmation of his double life, proving his utter disregard for her feelings and the sanctity of their marriage, even on a night of supposed new beginnings. According to Adrienne's testimony, her discovery of Ezra texting his mistress triggered a fresh wave of agonizing betrayal, but she maintained an outward composure, returning back upstairs to bed. When Ezra eventually did join her, their conversation became a renewed confrontation over the persistent wound of his infidelity. Eventually, Ezra does join her, and there's a conversation, and then she wants to re-engage him about their marriage, saying that it saddens her that you're, even on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, that you're not giving me the full attention. Her plea was a desperate attempt to reclaim a semblance of his emotional presence, a desire for exclusive affection, particularly on a significant holiday. She escalated her request, setting clear boundaries. She asked him if he would not spend holidays with the woman, not to speak to the woman on holidays. This was not just about infidelity, but about the desecration of sacred, familial time. However, Ezra's response, as narrated by Adrienne, was devastatingly unyielding, delivered with a callous disregard for her pain. Adrienne said that her husband had flatly and rudely refused. His rejection was absolute, unwavering, and emotionally brutal, mirroring his earlier ultimatum. Then, in a final act of profound contempt and dismissal, that's when he said, deal with it on your own. This pronouncement, delivered in the intimacy of their marital bed, was not merely a refusal, but a declaration of emotional abandonment, a profound re-traumatization for Adrienne, whose childhood had been marked by similar neglect and cruelty. The impact was immediate and catastrophic, sending Adrienne into a psychological freefall. Then, according to Adrienne, her husband had rolled over and gone to sleep. When she heard that, no, he turned his back to her. That sent on a spell tailspin. The literal and metaphorical turning of his back, his swift descent into peaceful slumber while she writhed in anguish, severed the final, tenuous thread of her hope. Her emotional landscape dissolved into a chaotic tailspin, spiraling downwards into a vortex of despair. As Adrienne lay in the marital bed, fully awake, consumed by a maelstrom of raw anguish and desperate despair, Ezra slept peacefully beside her, his back metaphorically and literally turned. In that moment of profound emotional abandonment and acute powerlessness, Adrienne's thoughts, morbid and inexorable, drifted to the lethal solution she had recently acquired. And as she lay there in bed with Ezra sleeping beside her, Adrienne said her thoughts had turned to the gun tucked away in her closet. The presence of the weapon, a dark symbol of the potential end, offered a macabre pathway out of her unbearable pain. She had lost all hope. The cumulative weight of decades of emotional neglect, of childhood abuse, of marital betrayal, and Ezra's ultimate dismissal coalesced into an unshakable conviction. There was no other recourse. In that terrifying clarity, she decided that she was going to shoot herself. Adrienne then recounted, with chilling precision, the mechanical steps she took to retrieve the instrument of her intended self-destruction. Adrienne told the investigators that she had gone into the closet and retrieved the gun. But even before she could execute her tragic plan, before the cold steel met her head, a familiar pattern of rumination and a practical aversion to mess, a bizarre and incongruous thought process given the gravity of her intent, began to assert itself. But even before she put a gun to her head, Adrienne said she had started having second thoughts. Her mind, even in its despair, seemed fixated on practicalities, an almost aesthetic concern overriding her suicidal ideation. She looks around and says, "I can't kill myself here, because it'd be too messy." The master bedroom, their marital sanctuary, was deemed an unsuitable place for such a violent, unkempt end, driven by this peculiar yet profound concern for neatness even in death. Adrienne told the investigators she had then gone into the master bath, a place commonly associated with privacy and cleanliness, to seek a more acceptable location. But this, too, after momentary consideration, was rejected, only to decide against killing herself there, too. She says, "I don't want to be found in the bathroom." Her desire for a public, rather than hidden, discovery of her suicide began to surface, hinting at an underlying motivation of posthumous impact. Finally, driven by this strange, almost theatrical preoccupation with the presentation of her death, Adrienne said that she decided to kill herself in bed. The explicit purpose behind this location choice was rooted in a perverse desire to punish Ezra. To ensure his awakening would be to a scene of profound consequence. So Ezra would realize just what he had driven her to. It was an act of final, desperate protest, designed to evoke remorse or guilt in her sleeping husband. However, a profound uncertainty lingered in her despairing thoughts. A cynical reflection on Ezra's character, although whether that would actually bother him or not, Adrienne said she wasn't so sure. His recent behavior, his cold dismissal, suggested an emotional imperviousness that might even extend to her death. According to Adrienne's account, it was precisely at this moment, as she approached the bed, ready to execute her self-punishing plan, that a new, more lethal target materialized in her consciousness. Because according to Adrienne, Ezra was already sound asleep when she approached the bed. His demeanor, serene and untroubled, was the final, devastating insult. She said that he looked like he was at peace. This sight, so tranquil, so profoundly contrasting with her own internal torment, sparked an acute sense of injustice. She was upset by that because she had been having a lot of problems sleeping. The stark juxtaposition of his blissful unconsciousness against her insomniac agony, their diametrically opposed states of being, encapsulated the entire injustice of their crumbling marriage. Their marriage was in shambles, and she had been contemplating suicide. Yet Ezra, the architect of her pain, appeared utterly untouched. But Ezra didn't appear to have a care in the world. According to what Adrienne meticulously recounted to the investigators, it was at this precise, emotionally charged juncture, witnessing Ezra's untroubled slumber, that it was all suddenly too much. The confluence of decades of pain, betrayal, the profound disappointment of her marital existence, and the jarring injustice of Ezra's peaceful state converged into a single, overwhelming moment of psychic collapse. She presented the act as an utter loss of control, a sudden, unpremeditated rupture in her mental state. She explained it as almost an impulse, and without even really thinking about it too much, shot him in the back of the head. This description, painting the act as an instantaneous, involuntary reaction to an unbearable stimulus, would form the cornerstone of her defense, an argument for diminished capacity rather than premeditated malice. The deliberate phrasing, emphasizing impulse in the absence of really thinking about it too much, was designed to portray the killing as a tragic, unpremeditated act. As the narrative shifts, the focus turns from the chilling confession to the agonizing aftermath, particularly Adrienne's interaction with her own child. Coming up, Adrienne speaks to her daughter. This meeting, conducted under the stark scrutiny of law enforcement, promised to reveal yet more layers of truth, or perhaps further complications, to Adrienne's carefully constructed narrative of impulsivity. Jessica, her daughter, herself caught in a whirlwind of fear and confusion, had maintained an unwavering resolve, refusing to leave the police station until she spoke to her mother. Her emotional declaration to the officers resonated with understandable urgency. "I'm not leaving the station until I talk to her." This mother-daughter conversation, however, would unwittingly provide investigators with a critical, unexpected clue, a small yet potent detail that could profoundly impact the prosecution's understanding of Adrienne's intent. And Jessica gives the investigators a crucial clue, the innocent, yet deeply significant question from daughter to mother would illuminate a prior conversation, hinting at a darker, more deliberate plan than Adrienne had initially conveyed. The memory of her mother's cryptic words would surface. "They told me you were going to take care of them." This innocuous phrasing, when placed in the chilling context of Ezra's death, could irrevocably transform a narrative of impulsive tragedy into one of chilling premeditation. "I'm not leaving the station until I talk to her." This firm, unwavering declaration from Jessica Davidson, echoing through the sterile halls of the Pomona police station, encapsulated a daughter's desperate need for connection and understanding amidst a maelstrom of confusion and terrifying uncertainty. It was New Year's Day, 2009, and less than an hour had passed since 46-year-old Adrienne Davidson had walked into an L.A. County Sheriff's Department substation, delivering the calm, chilling confession that had irrevocably shattered her family. She had shot her husband, Ezra. The immediate sequence of events, as recounted, underscored Adrienne's chilling composure in the immediate aftermath of the homicide. As soon as Adrienne arrives at the police station, she tells the person at the front desk that she shot her husband and wants to turn herself in. This direct, unequivocal self-incrimination bypassed any initial attempts at deception, plunging directly into the horrifying truth. In her formal statement to the authorities, meticulously documented by seasoned investigators, Adrienne offered her explanation for the unfathomable act. She attributed her actions to a profound state of emotional distress, specifically citing the devastating impact of Ezra's extramarital affair. She painted a picture of a wife pushed to the brink, unable to cope with the profound betrayal and public humiliation. Adrienne said she had been distraught over the fact that Ezra had been having an affair. The information, she asserted, had come as a catastrophic revelation. After Adrienne found all of this information about her husband having an affair, he told her that he was not going to leave this woman that he was seeing. This stark, unapologetic refusal to end his illicit relationship, a final, cruel dismissal of Adrienne's pain, was, in her narrative, the ultimate catalyst. Shattered by this crushing news, Adrienne confessed that she had initially planned to kill herself, returning to a familiar, desperate coping mechanism from her past. But then, in a dramatic, alleged shift of intention, her target had changed. At the last minute, she claimed, she had ended up killing Ezra instead. Her official narrative to the authorities, carefully crafted for mitigation, would coalesce around the concept of an impulsive act. She decided she would kill herself in her bed, and then by an act of compulsion, just turned over and shot him. This was her psychological explanation, an attempt to rationalize the murder as an unintended, uncontrollable reaction rather than a cold, calculated act. At the conclusion of her harrowing statement, Adrienne was formally taken into custody. The wheels of justice had, with a grim inevitability, begun to turn. However, at this nascent stage of the investigation, the authorities had yet to make a definitive decision just how to charge her. The intricacies of California's criminal code required a nuanced assessment of the facts. All homicides start at second degree. This base charge, defined as an unlawful killing of a human being with malice aforethought, established the initial framework for the legal process. The critical question, the very pivot point of the legal strategy, then became one of intent and premeditation. And then the question then becomes based upon the evidence that's collected. Do we move up to first degree, or does it move down to voluntary manslaughter? First-degree murder would imply premeditation, a cold, calculated intent to kill, whereas voluntary manslaughter would suggest a killing in the heat of passion, without a preceding plan. Adrienne's entire defense, therefore, would hinge on painting her actions as the latter, hoping for a much-needed injection of clarity, or perhaps a corroborating perspective. The investigators logically turned to her daughter, Jessica, while Adrienne had been confessing her unimaginable crime in the sterile confines of the interrogation room. The 21-year-old Jessica had been agonizingly waiting outside, unaware of what her mother was, confessing. Her frustration, a natural byproduct of enforced ignorance and prolonged detention, was palpable. I don't appreciate having to stay at the police station, not knowing what's going on, so now I'm freaking out. The fear and confusion had mounted to an almost unbearable pitch. However, by the time her mother had been formally taken into custody, the truth, raw and unsparing, had been revealed to Jessica. She was now in her own interrogation room, confronting the horrifying reality that her father was dead. The world as she knew it had imploded. That really kind of put a whole new perspective on things. A profound understatement of the catastrophic impact of such news. Under questioning by the diligent investigators, Jessica, despite her profound grief and shock, recounted what she knew about her father's long-standing affair, detailing the trouble it had caused in her parents' marriage. Her testimony provided crucial backstory of also how things escalated, offering an invaluable perspective on the increasingly toxic dynamics within the Davidson household. She also made it starkly clear that Adrienne wasn't the only one who felt a burning sense of anger about the affair. Jessica herself harbored a deep resentment, particularly concerning the financial implications of her father's lavish spending on his mistress. Jessica was enrolled in college, and she said that her father was not able to help her with that. Cost it all, even at the same time that Ezra had spent all this money on a car before his mistress. The blatant hypocrisy, the diversion of familial funds towards an illicit relationship while his own daughter struggled with educational expenses, fueled Jessica's profound sense of injustice and amplified her empathy for her mother's desperate situation. After meticulously providing her statement to the investigators, detailing the painful unraveling of her parents' marriage and the financial implications of Ezra's infidelity, Jessica's desperate need for connection and clarity superseded any procedural formality. Jessica asked to see her mother. Her plea, raw and unyielding, was absolute. "I basically say that I'm not leaving the station until I talk to her." The investigators, recognizing the profound emotional stakes involved, and perhaps hoping to glean further insights from an unguarded maternal conversation, eventually acquiesced. Hours after the shooting, a lifetime measured in shattered family dreams, the investigators allowed Jessica to speak to her mother via closed-circuit television. The visual connection, though mediated by technology, offered a painful, poignant reunion. It's in a very tiny space, and she looks like herself, but she's very distraught. You just can't really keep it together. Adrienne's visible distress, her profound emotional fragmentation, was clearly evident even through the pixelated screen. Jessica herself, still grappling with the catastrophic events, mirrored her mother's profound emotional state. The same was true of Jessica. She was stunned, she's in shock, and she wanted to know what set you off. What set you off? Her desperate questions, tinged with disbelief and a yearning for understanding, pierced the silence. "I just don't get it." A previous conversation, she revealed to her mother, had offered a flicker of hope, making the current tragedy utterly incomprehensible. "He told me yesterday that finally everything was fine." She then recounted the perceived harmony of New Year's Eve. They celebrated New Year's Eve together, and that she had asked for him to reserve the day for them. It was a plea for exclusive time, for an affirmation of their marital bond on a significant day. Yet, the brutal reality of Ezra's continued infidelity had permeated even that intimate setting, and she looked at him, and he was sending messages on his phone. The act, seemingly innocuous to an outsider, was a stark betrayal for Adrienne, and she feared that maybe he was talking to his mistress. Jessica, fully grasping the emotional sting, voiced her profound sympathy. "She didn't even give me New Year's Eve without involving her. It just broke my heart." The shared pain, the profound maternal and filial grief over Ezra's actions, forged an empathetic bond between them, even in the shadow of murder. In that raw, unfiltered, and deeply emotional jailhouse conversation, Jessica, seeking to alleviate her mother's obvious distress and guilt, did her best to comfort her mother. Her words were an outpouring of love and an attempt at understanding, seeking to soothe Adrienne's obvious torment. "I did it, Mom. I totally understand. I love you, and I'm going to let you. I get it. I'm fine. I just need you to talk to me. Don't be sorry, Mom. Don't be sorry. It's okay. I'm just going to take you to work." These earnest, if misguided, assurances from a heartbroken daughter were an attempt to offer a lifeline of forgiveness and acceptance. But it was during this very act of profound empathy and attempted consolation that Jessica, in an unwitting revelation, also said something else, something that caught the investigators' attention. Her words, delivered without malice or forethought, provided a critical, tantalizing, crucial clue that challenged Adrienne's narrative of an impulsive act. Jessica's question, born of retrospective understanding, alluded to a prior, more deliberate exchange. "Did you plan this? I mean, is this what you meant when you told me you were going to take care of things while I first?" The implication was clear. There had been a conversation, a plan, a commitment to take care of things that extended beyond a simple marital discussion. Adrienne's chilling, yet clarifying response further solidified the premonitory nature of that earlier exchange. I said that I was going to bring to you, I was going to take care of you and Matthew. This statement, promising to take care of her children, took on a profoundly sinister meaning when viewed through the lens of Ezra's death, suggesting a long-term, calculated resolution, a desire to secure their future by removing a perceived threat. The revelation of that prior conversation between Adrienne and Jessica, specifically the promise to take care of things, instantly cast a profound shadow of doubt over Adrienne's initial narrative of an impulsive act, challenging the very foundation of her defense. Was shooting Ezra a spur-of-the-moment decision as Adrienne had described? Suddenly, the investigators weren't so sure. Jessica's seemingly innocuous question had opened a new, more sinister line of inquiry. The recollection that Adrienne had vaguely hinted at a definitive action on the 1st, meaning New Year's Day, took on chilling significance. She told her that something was going to happen on the 1st, and that certainly builds our case when it says she had this planned well in advance. This premonitory statement, connecting a planned action with the date of the murder, profoundly strengthened the prosecution's argument for premeditation. Adrienne, in her jailhouse conversation with Jessica, also revealed another deeply unsettling detail, reaffirming her initial claim of thwarted suicide. She asserted that after shooting Ezra, she had meant to kill herself too. However, the subsequent events had taken a different turn. She didn't take her own life because after she heard the gunshot, she got scared. This admission of fear, presented as a moment of faltering resolve, served to explain her survival. Yet, Adrienne expressed a profound regret, almost a longing for a different outcome. But according to Adrienne, she regretted not following through with her suicide plan. This post-facto expression of regret, combined with Jessica's unwitting revelation of a pre-planned event, dramatically shifted the investigators' perspective. After Adrienne's conversation with Jessica, the authorities were inclined to agree with the interpretation of premeditation. The narrative of an impulsive, last-minute decision was rapidly unraveling. A few days later, the investigative team meticulously tracked down the gun shop owner who sold Adrienne a pistol on December 15th, meticulously tracing precise origin of the murder weapon. The information gleaned from this crucial interview further solidified their mounting suspicion that Ezra's shooting was tragically premeditated rather than a spontaneous act of despair. The gun shop owner provided critical details regarding Adrienne's selection of the firearm. He showed her about 6 guns, suggesting a deliberate, thoughtful choice rather than a frantic, impulsive purchase. Among the options, Adrienne had made a specific selection. She ended up picking the semi-automatic. It was a Smith & Wesson 9mm, the choice of a semi-automatic weapon, known for its rapid firing capabilities and often associated with tactical use, added another layer of calculated intent. Even more damningly, according to gun shop owner's testimony, Adrienne had also made a highly specific and deeply unsettling choice in ammunition. According to the shop owner, Adrienne had also bought a box of hollow point bullets. This was not an ordinary, general-purpose purchase. The shop owner, in his professional capacity, had explicitly educated Adrienne on the critical differences between ammunition types. There's a full metal jacket, and there's the hollow point ones, and he describes a difference between the two of them to her. His expert advice left no room for ambiguity regarding the lethality of her choice. He says that if you want a lethal bullet, the hollow point is the way to go. Hollow point bullets are designed to expand upon impact, inflicting maximum internal damage and increasing the likelihood of rapid incapacitation, making them a specific choice for extreme lethality. This deliberate selection of particularly destructive ammunition, coupled with the clear intention articulated to Jessica, "I'm going to take care of them," established a chilling timeline of premeditation that spanned from the gun's purchase to the day of the murder on January 29th, 2009. Armed with this overwhelming and meticulously assembled body of evidence, Adrienne Davidson was formally charged with first-degree murder, The precise timeline underscored the cold, calculated nature of her actions. She picked up the gun on December 29th, and then, of course, proceeded to kill the person on January 1st. The temporal distance between acquisition and execution, meticulously established by the investigators, definitively undermined any claim of spur-of-the-moment impulse. Certainly seems like a person who knew what she was doing, an investigator observed. A chilling summary of the premeditated crime. On February 25, 2010, in a courtroom in Pomona, California, Adrienne Davidson's fate was placed in the hands of a jury as she went on trial for the murder of her husband, Ezra. The legal proceedings commenced with the overarching main question in this particular case is what? Is it a question not of if she killed Ezra, which she confessed, but of the specific degree of her culpability? Was it a first-degree murder? Was it second-degree murder? Was it a voluntary manslaughter? Each designation carried vastly different legal ramifications, defining the severity of her punishment and the narrative of her actions. There were two significant factors complicating this weighty decision for the jury. The first complicating factor, a narrative that underpinned the defense's entire argument, was the raw, emotional truth of Ezra's infidelity. The first was that 2 weeks before the shooting, Ezra had admitted he was having an affair with a much younger woman. This fact, established by Adrienne's own discovery of the emails and her testimony, set the stage for her purported emotional distress. More significantly, it was not merely the affair itself, but Ezra's cruel, unrepentant response to being confronted that exacerbated Adrienne's torment. She said he didn't apologize to her about it. He basically told her that he was going to keep seeing this woman and that there wasn't anything that she could do to keep him from her. This unwavering refusal to abandon his mistress, coupled with the arrogant dismissal of Adrienne's pain, positioned Ezra as a truly unsympathetic figure, an intentional provocateur in the final, deadly marital argument. This portrayal was crucial for the defense to argue for a lesser charge. The second complicating factor, a subtly influential element that could sway the jury's perspective, was the makeup of the jury itself. The panel consisted of 11 women and only one man.